to you and our great staff, and it's good to be back. Leader McConnell will speak after me here on the floor, and I'm glad to see him back and doing well. Mr. President, let me begin by welcoming all of our senators back from August work period. August was a busy month for all of us back home, a time to listen to constituents about what's on their minds, like lowering costs and increasing paychecks. It was also a time for ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, as the historic investments that Democrats made come to fruition. And of course, it was a time to prepare for the very busy month in front of us. On the implementation side, August was a month of action, of groundbreakings, of celebrating new factories and new good-paying jobs that will stick around for a long, long time. When a parent sees his or her son or daughter get these jobs, they know they're going to be around for a long time, not going to be gone in 2-3 years. It's a great thing for optimism and the future of America. And it was even nice to see Speaker McCarthy in my home state of New York, celebrating the new jobs secured by Democrats when he visited JMA Wireless last month. I've been there many times, too. In fact, it was from my own visits there and to other companies across New York that I saw firsthand the opportunity to invest in companies like JMA by Buy in America provisions that we added to the legislation, and it helped us shape the Inflation Reduction Act. As the Speaker saw with his own eyes, Democrats' investments are already bearing fruit. In just 1 year alone, the Inflation Reduction Act has resulted in over 200 new clean energy jobs and created 170,000 new good-paying jobs. In just 1 year, the Inflation Reduction Act alone has resulted in over 200 new clean energy projects and created over 170,000 new good-paying jobs. And it's projected to create another 1.5 million jobs over the next decade. Pick any region of the country, and you'll have no trouble seeing Democrats' agenda in action. One of the amazing visits I went to was in Allegheny County in upstate New York. It's in Appalachia. By income levels, it's one of the poorest counties in our state. And there, the Inflation Reduction Act is blowing new life into Lundstrom. This was a company that used to make coal technology equipment and has transitioned to making parts for wind turbines and is hiring 150 new workers, all in a place where people thought they didn't have much of a history because they knew the coal industry was declining. It's happened all over America. In Georgia, Hyundai and LG announced they're increasing their multi-billion-dollar investment towards a major EV and battery manufacturing plant, one that will be the state's largest project ever, creating thousands of good-paying jobs in years to come. And in New Mexico, Arcosa broke ground on a new wind tower production facility expected to create 250 new jobs. These jobs will help fill the over $1 billion worth of wind tower orders they have received since President Biden signed the IRA law. These investments, and many others, are supporting the whole of America, red and blue states, rural and urban, everyone, everywhere. And you can be sure, Mr. President, the best is yet to come. Last month, we saw other examples of implementation, too. Over the past few weeks, President Biden made groundbreaking announcements on lowering the cost of prescription drugs, on prevailing wage, and more. Many of these are a direct result of the work that we have done in the Congress. So Democrats are very proud of the agenda now taking hold across America, and we intend to keep going. Now, the Senate gavels back into session with a lot to do, but there is one clear place to begin. Keep the government open. As we all know, government funding is set to expire on September 30th. By the end of this month, the House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans, all must get on the same page about keeping the government open and avoiding a pointless shutdown, a shutdown that will hurt just about every single American, a shutdown that, of course, shouldn't happen. To accomplish that, the answer is very simple. All sides must work together in good faith without engaging in extremist or all-or-nothing tactics. Look no further than the example we've set here in a bipartisan way in the Senate. Democrats working with Republicans on a bipartisan basis. Chairs, Democratic chairs, engaging fruitfully with Republican vice chairs and ranking members. All 12 appropriation bills have been reported out of committee with bipartisan support, some of them unanimously. Both sides avoided dragging the process down with unseemly tactics. It sets a very good template for how things should work in Congress. I want to thank all my colleagues, but especially Appropriations Chair Patty Murray and Vice Chair Susan Collins, for their tremendous work thus far on the appropriations process. They truly deserve a lot of credit. When the House returns next week, I hope House Republicans, I implore House Republicans, to recognize that time is short to keep the government open and that the only way we will finish the appropriations process is through bipartisanship. The idea of both parties working together, not one party, particularly a party governed by an extreme 30 or 40 members, filling out a wish list that they know can't pass. Can't do that. So let me repeat, let me say it again. The only way to avoid a shutdown is through bipartisanship. So I plead with House Republican leadership to follow the Senate's lead and pass bipartisan Democrat and Republican appropriation bills supported by both parties. And as we work to fund the government, there are plenty other things we must do too, both on and off the floor. We will continue, for one, continue laying a foundation for bipartisan congressional action on AI. Next Wednesday, along with Senators Rounds, Heinrich, and Young, I will host the Senate's inaugural AI Insight Forum, a first-ever convening of the top minds in AI here in the Congress. Voices from business and civil rights community, researchers, worker advocates, and many more, all in one room, having an open discussion about how Congress can act on AI, where to start, what questions to ask, and how to build a foundation for safe AI innovation. These IA forums are vital. Artificial intelligence is unlike any topic we've undertaken in Congress. It moves faster, it is more complex, and there is little precedent for this kind of work. This is not going to be easy. In fact, it will be one of the most difficult things we undertake. But in the 21st century, as technology moves forward with or without us, we cannot behave like ostriches with heads in the sand when it comes to AI. We must treat AI with the same level of seriousness as national security, as job creation, as our civil liberties. Now, ultimately, of course, the real legislative work will come in committees. But the AI forums will give us the nutrient agar, the facts and the challenges that we need to understand in order to reach this goal. Of course, next week's forum is just the start. The Senate will continue hosting AI forums throughout the fall on a variety of topics, including finding ways to promote AI innovation, IP issues, workforce issues, privacy, security, alignment, and many more. We will also move the ball forward on other items on our agenda, wherever we can. But of course, they will need Republican help to reach the necessary 60 votes to move forward, like lowering the cost of insulin and prescription drugs, something members on both sides of the aisle are hard at work on. We did it in the IRA for insulin for Medicare for people over 65. We should do it for everybody else. Insulin is too vital and becoming too expensive for too many Americans. And making progress on cannabis through the Safe Banking Act, as well as common sense rail safety, which I said in July will be a big priority. We also must build on the work we did during the NDAA to outcompete the Chinese government, to keep the American people safe, to protect American businesses, and ensure that American innovation and technology leads the way this century. We also must continue standing with our friends in Ukraine, now more than ever, as the counteroffensive against Putin's forces is in full swing. And we must stand with our fellow Americans in places like Hawaii, Florida, Vermont, and other regions battered by storms and fires and flooding. And the topics continue, from advancing a farm bill to kids' online privacy to reauthorizing the FAA to holding bank executives accountable for irresponsible behavior. Our committees have done excellent work to move all of these issues along, but we are under no illusion that we can make progress on the Senate floor unless we get bipartisan cooperation. None of this will be easy either. The bills will require a lot of work and compromise, but if we can progress on these items, we will greatly improve the lives of average Americans. Finding bipartisan compromise on issues like these is never easy, but that's what it'll take to get things done. And our efforts to do precisely that have already led to significant accomplishments under this majority. As we gavel back in, we will keep going to reward the trust the American people have placed in us. And finally, on Jack Lew. Earlier today, President Biden announced he's nominated Jack Lew as the next U.S. ambassador to Israel. Israel is one of America's most important allies and will remain an essential partner in the years ahead on security, tech innovation, and cultural ties. So it's vital we have a strong American ambassador in Jerusalem. Mr. Lew is precisely the person for the job of ambassador to Israel that we need. As former Treasury Secretary and Chief of Staff under President Obama, he'll bring a wealth of experience, of diplomatic skill, that will ensure the partnership between the U.S. and Israel, assure that it remains strong. And you know why else I know Jack Lew will do a great job? He's a proud Queens boy and a graduate of Forest Hills High School, which I used to represent in Congress. I commend President Biden for nominating Mr. Lew, and I look forward to his nomination here in the Senate. I yield the floor.
Clerk will call the roll. Ms. Baldwin.
Mr. President,
Republican leader.
I ask consent that further proceedings on the quorum call be dispensed with.
Without objection.
And well, Mr. President, I'm glad to welcome our colleagues back from the August work period. Spending time back in our states with the folks we represent isn't just part of our job. More than anything else, it's what allows us to be effective here in Washington. Now, one particular moment of my time back home has received its fair share of attention in the press over the past week, but I assure you, August was a busy and productive month for me and my staff back in the Commonwealth. I kicked off the month in West Kentucky and then in my hometown of Louisville, where I met with small businesses and community leaders. We had a candid conversation on the critical issues facing our state, from relentless inflation, straining families and business owners, to the challenge of finding workers in a lagging labor market. I also had a chance to travel to the eastern part of Kentucky, where I met with healthcare and recovery workers in Manchester. Tragically, the substance abuse crisis has become even deadlier in recent years, especially in my home state. So we discussed what we're doing to combat it and find ways the federal government can fill the gaps. I also welcomed Dr. Rahul Gupta, the National Drug Czar, back to the Commonwealth to hear more about what we're doing to fight back against addiction. I look forward to continuing working with Dr. Gupta to make Kentucky a safe and healthier place. Throughout the month, I was pleased to see over $6 million go toward addressing the opioid crisis at home. This federal funding will go a long way in supporting programs that offer a lifeline to countless Kentuckians who struggle with substance abuse. In Bowling Green, I met with community bankers to discuss what Senate Republicans are doing to put a check on the Biden administration's reckless spending and regulatory overreach. At the Kentucky State Fair, I had a chance to indulge in some of the best that the Bluegrass has to offer, like the Farm Bureau's famous ham breakfast. This event is a highlight of mine every August, and this year was no exception. I met with farmers from across the state to discuss their priorities and concerns as Congress takes up the all-important Farm Bill. This input will be vital to our work here in the Senate in the months ahead. In northern Kentucky, I wrapped up the month with local business leaders to talk about some of our landmark infrastructure investments underway in the state, like overhauling the Brent Spence Bridge and revitalizing our river ports and railroads. From rural farm families to businesses of all sizes, every Kentuckian I met voiced the same message. There's too much government and too little being done to boost the economy and help everyday people. So as the Senate gets back to work in Washington, I'll keep these conversations and concerns in the forefront of my mind. This month, of course, Congress needs to address our nation's most pressing needs with timely appropriations, and we need to keep the lights on come October 1st. Back in January, I pointed out that Washington Democrats, the new normal they faced, the American people had elected divided government and demanded that we work together on our most basic governing responsibilities. Well, as I've reminded our colleagues regularly since then, that meant funding the government through regular order. It's been encouraging to see Senator Collins, Senator Murray, and our colleagues on the Appropriations Committee make serious headway in that direction. And next week, we'll aim to pass the first batch of their work out here on the floor. I've also made clear that the Senate's top priority must be keeping the American people safe. And this month, we'll have a chance to do that with supplemental appropriations for urgent national security and disaster relief priorities. We need to continue to invest in America's defense industrial base, both to support our partners in today's fight and to help our forces deter tomorrow's threats. And as our colleagues from Florida and Hawaii know all too well, emergency personnel are working overtime to help communities shattered by natural disasters over the summer. So the Senate reconvenes with our work cut out for us and a deadline fast approaching. I hope each of our colleagues has returned ready to do their part.